So the Young Turks obviously are complaining that Ilhan Omar appears to be something that the right wing doesn't like. And to their defence, in their credit, they've actually done some good work here. Edited videos are bad no matter who they're edited of, and the edit in this regard did change the context of what Ilhan Omar was saying. I'll let this guy explain to you what the problem was.
The right-wing war against Representative Ilhan Omar has a number of different weapons in its arsenal. Lately, Donald Trump has taken to just making up quotes that she supposedly said about Al-Qaeda and things like that. She didn't say it, but nobody checks anything anymore, so it doesn't really matter. And that's all well and good, but it's not as good as video. You really want to see Ilhan Omar saying something, and if she doesn't actually say something horrible with a bit of selective editing, you can make it look kind of bad. And so we're going to show you a video. It's from an interview she did with Al Jazeera last year. Now, all of this is the interview. Parker Malloy took the video and she highlighted the section that has been spread on right-wing Twitter. So you're going to see the full video, but notice the section in the middle that has been edited out.
A lot of conservatives in particular would say that the rise in Islamophobia is a result not of hate, but of fear, a legitimate fear, they say, of quote-unquote jihadist terrorism, whether it's Fort Hood or San Bernardino or the recent truck attack in New York. What do you say to them?
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
Okay, so this purple bit is where this section had been edited out. But that statement on its own is not great, but she does then turn it into a rhetorical point at the end. But it really doesn't seem like she's presenting it like it is, but let's give her the benefit of the doubt. She's speaking off the cuff. Most charitable interpretation. So this is the bit that's then left out.
And so if fear was the driving force of policies to keep America safe, Americans safe inside of this country, we should be profiling, monitoring, and creating policies to fight the radicalization of white men.
Okay, so she reframes it saying, if fear is the driving force, then by that logic, we would therefore look at the radicalization of white men. They do, for a start. But obviously, the percentage of white men compared to Muslim men, for example, in the United States is far greater. And on a per capita basis is the question. She leaves that out. She's looking at the direct quantity. Not a very good point, and I don't think that we should use a direct quantity for almost any metric we use. I think that per capita is a lot more safe, but she wasn't just saying we should monitor all white men. It was couched in a rhetorical framework. And yes, that was wrong to do that. Deceptive editing, as someone who's been the victim of this, it is awful. You know, like, criticize someone for what they're actually trying to say, rather than for what you want them to be saying. Totally agree.
So if you saw the video there, like her describing what is the rhetorical point she's making was oddly cut for time, I guess, and making it seem like what she doesn't believe and isn't advocating for is what she's advocating for.
But I don't even know why even the deceptively edited one is that controversial.
Cenk, you fucking buffoon. The deceptively edited one is saying that she thinks we should profile and stalk white men just for being white men. Cenk, there is no ideology of white men. Do you understand that? Like, being an Islamist comes with specific markers, behavioral markers, ideological markers. They do certain things. They go to certain places. They believe certain things. We can figure out who these people are, so we don't have to monitor all Muslims. We can monitor certain mosques. Sorry, carry on. You want to blanket track all white men because fuck them.
So let me expand upon it. So the Anti-Defamation League said that last year in 2018, 98% of the attacks that led to deaths, domestic terrorist attacks, were done by white right-wingers, 98%. So if you want to get all afraid of someone and take action and profile them, well, it should clearly be white men. Okay, well, you say, all right, well, look, that's just 1 year.
I don't know whether I should stop you or just let you keep digging into a hole.
Okay, and by the way, that's the Anti-Defamation League. I don't know if, ironically, they say Ilhan Omar is anti-Semitic, but I can hear right-wingers typing right now. Who cares about the ADL? A bunch of Jews don't care about him.
Why do you care about him? Like, do you accept that Ilhan Omar is anti-Semitic then? If they say about this and you're using them as a credible source, why are they not a credible source on this? Do you understand?
Right, anyway. But let's put that aside. How about the FBI?
Jesus.
Well, Christopher Wray, Trump's pick for the head of the FBI, testified just a couple of days ago and said, yeah, the majority of the attacks, domestic terrorist attacks, are from white supremacists.
Right. So we've managed to narrow that down quite significantly. You started from white right-wingers, and you've gone from what's probably about white right-wing men. So probably something like 30 or 40 million people in America. And then you've shrunk that down to probably a few thousand people. Good job. Really, that's a good start. But that's not what Ilhan Omar was saying in the edited clip, which is why everyone was so upset with the edited clip, which I agree with you was deceptively edited.
Overwhelming majorities from white supremacists. There's also anti-government extremists who are also white right-wing men.
Hang on, Cenk. Let's give Antifa their credit. They're also white right-wing. I don't even know what pronoun we should use for them. Well, I mean, I don't want to start assuming their gender all of a sudden. I hear that's offensive.
And some from incel extremists who hate women, also right-wing men.
Okay, but again, like that's a tiny percentage of the population, Cenk. Like, oh my God, do you think you're surrounded by these people?
White men, okay? Now, you say, all right, well, look, Cenk, it's just 1 year. Okay, fine, the FBI agrees with the AD.
It's just like, I know, in total, you're probably listing about 10,000 people.
So I lost that argument. Okay, so how about if it's longer period? Well, if you look at the decade before 2009 to 2018, well, it turns out 75% of the attacks, or 3/4 of the attacks, again, according to the ADL, are from right-wing extremists. Okay.
Yeah, because you're a majority white country. Majority men, because men are the ones who get stuff done. Men are effective when they do attacks. I'm sorry that that's the case. What the fuck do you want, Cenk? This is totally expected. It's not out of the ordinary. You know that before Britain had mass immigration, almost 100% of the murders were done by white people, Cenk. You know how they didn't profile them based on their race? Like, they had to think of something else. Because there are usually more relevant factors. I mean, you've listed a bunch of them yourself, including political beliefs, which seems to be the predominant reason for them. So isn't that more relevant? Or are you saying that all right-wingers are basically the KKK? What am I asking? Of course that's what you're saying.
If you go all the way back to right before or right after September 11th, guess what number you're going to find? This is according to the Government Accountability Office. So now these are several different organizations all agreeing all across this different timeline
that less than 1% of your population is Muslim. Therefore, most of your terrorism is not done by Muslims. Shocking. Absolutely shocking. But a lot of it, for the number, is disproportionately high, isn't it? The number that have been stopped are disproportionately high, aren't they?
And they say about 75% of the attacks are by right-wing extremists who are white men.
But it's an ideology. It's the right-wing extremism bit. Why do you care about the right-wing men, the white men bit?
Now, it is a perfectly fair point to say the country's 75% white. So it's somewhat proportional, right? Or completely proportional. Now, the country's 50% women, and almost every attack is by a guy.
Okay.
So, again, if you wanted to be accurate in who you profiled, you would profile men, period. You'd leave women alone completely.
Maybe even profile it down to KKK members and people who use these, dark web forums to do atom weapon stuff and whatever. You'd profile like real extremists, wouldn't you?
Now, we're not saying profile white men.
Are you not?
And Ilhan Omar didn't go as far as I did. She's definitely not saying that.
Amazing.
She's saying, why are you asking to profile people who are doing a tiny percentage of the attacks as opposed to the people who are doing 3/4 to 100% of the attacks?
Because they're a tiny percentage of the population, and this happens a lot. Like, most terrorism in the world is done by Muslim extremists. They seem to be getting away with preaching it in mosques in many places, because often it's done in a foreign language. It seems to be done maliciously, with big financing from overseas. We do have to be concerned about it. Now, I know that you're going to take that as meaning, like, eradicate Muslims or something. No, I'm not saying any such thing, Cenk. I'm just saying this is a facet of reality that we have to be cognizant of. This is not saying do not go after white supremacist terrorists. They do already. They treat them like the worst thing in the world, because they are one of the worst things in the world. But so are these other terrorists. And often they get away mingling and going under the radar in these other communities, because they use the community itself as a shield. Because people like you assume that when we talk about the terrorists, the radicals in that community that are of disproportionate number, you think we're talking about that entire community. That's why, Cenk. That's why we have to have these long, drawn-out conversations. So Sam Harris has to sit there with Ben Affleck and explain to him like a child that out of the entire subset of Muslims, superset of Muslims, there is a subset that this and a subset that, and you can drill it down to a very small number that are radical jihadis. And we have to be able to identify them. And to do that, we have to pay some attention to their community. And to do that means we have to pay some attention, some regulatory power to the sort of stuff that's taught in the mosques, the places of influence, because that's where the radicals like to go. We think that that's an acceptable thing to do, that doesn't stigmatize the entire community. You think that stigmatizes the entire community. I'm sure that there are many people on the outer concentric circles who would love for us to go in and make sure that this radical shit is not being taught in the mosques. Like, they're the ones who tell us it's there, you know? But you can't separate the two. And then you say white people. And it's like, Cenk, you are not helping, mate.